By the mid-18th century, the 13 English colonies were thriving. They had grown into dense, bustling economic engines, deeply integrated into the British Empire's global trade network. Period maps show a stark divide. Tightly packed English colonies bordered New France, a vastly larger territory. In 1754, competing claims over the Ohio River Valley sparked the French-Indian War, a global struggle ending with Britain seizing nearly all French territory in North America. But the cost of this vast new territory was immense. To fund military campaigns across multiple continents, the British government had borrowed on a massive scale, ending the war with a national debt that threatened to collapse the imperial economy. Looking for a way to service that debt, Parliament turned to the colonies. They introduced the Stamp Act, which required the specific red revenue stamp to be purchased for newspapers, legal documents, and nearly every piece of printed paper used in daily life.
Because the colonists had no elected representatives in the Parliament passing these laws, they argued the tax violated their traditional rights as English subjects. The move shifted the perception of London from a protective central government to a distant authority imposing its will without consent. Resistance was immediate and economic. Citizens organized widespread boycotts of British imports, hitting London's merchants hard enough that Parliament eventually voted to revoke the Stamp Act. That retreat was temporary. As this diagram shows, Parliament replaced the single stamp tax with a new series of duties on a wide range of essential commodities the colonies couldn't produce: glass, lead, oil, and tea. To ensure these new laws were enforced and to suppress the growing unrest, London took the drastic step of quartering 1,000 armed soldiers directly in the city of Boston. In March 1770, the tension of the occupation broke. A crowd of protesters began harassing a sentry with stones and ice. In the confusion, the soldiers fired into the crowd, leaving 5 colonists dead. 3 years later, physical defiance became more organized. Members of the Sons of Liberty boarded British ships in Boston Harbor and destroyed an entire shipment of tea to protest the ongoing tax. The Crown's response was a total crackdown. They deployed 4,000 additional troops to Boston and suspended the local government, Massachusetts, placing the colony under direct military rule. By moving from legislative debate to military occupation, the Crown replaced civil governance with armed force. With local laws suspended and soldiers quartered in private homes, the mechanism for peaceful compromise had been dismantled. In 1774, 12 colonies sent delegates to Philadelphia to coordinate a response to the loss of local government. This First Continental Congress represented the first time the colonies acted as a unified political body. While the Congress petitioned London, people in the countryside prepared for a physical conflict. They organized local Minutemen militias and began stockpiling weapons in secret. The flashpoint came in April 1775, when British troops marched to seize those weapons. Paul Revere and other writers galloped through the night and raised the alarm, allowing the militias to intercept the British at Lexington and Concord. These initial clashes, followed by a costly battle at Bunker Hill, forced the colonies to organize. They formed the Continental Army and appointed George Washington to lead it. By July 1776, the political goals of the rebellion were made official. This document, the Declaration of Independence, formally severed the colony's ties to the British Crown. This transition turned civil disobedience into a military campaign. A formal declaration and an organized army established the colonies as a sovereign power engaged in a war for statehood. The trajectory of the war changed after the Battle of Saratoga. By forcing the surrender of an entire British army, the American forces proved they could win a conventional, large-scale campaign. That success brought the conflict onto the world stage. As this map shows, France and Spain entered the war against Britain, sending the ships, troops, and financial aid necessary to challenge British naval dominance. This international support reached its peak at Yorktown. French naval forces blocked the British escape by sea, while American and French ground troops forced a final surrender. The 1783 Treaty of Paris officially ended the war. Britain recognized the United States as an independent nation and ceded all territory from the Atlantic coast to the Mississippi River. To govern this new territory, the states ratified the U.S. Constitution.
Its opening words, "We the people," established a new system where government authority was derived from the citizens rather than a monarch. The war had consequences far beyond the Americas. France had incurred such a massive debt to support the revolution that it triggered a financial collapse at home, becoming a primary cause of the French Revolution. The chain of escalation that began with attacks on paper documents had reached its conclusion. By dismantling the absolute power of the crown, the revolution established a new template for government that would eventually influence political systems around the world.